Hey guys, today I'll be showing you guys the best braiding patterns to use for crochet. I do a lot of crochet braids, so over time I've kind of figured out what works really well and what doesn't, and what will give you the most natural look in the end. So today I'll be showing you guys two of my favorite braiding patterns. They're both really good. I think one is really good for side parts and the other one is really good for middle parts, but both can be used on either a middle part or a side part. So let's just get right into it. If you want to learn how to do this braiding pattern, you can start watching now from the beginning. If you want to learn how to do this braiding pattern, you can fast forward to this portion of the video. Or you can just watch and learn how to do both and pick which one you prefer. Like I said, they're both really good. So let's just get started with this first braiding pattern. To start off, what I do is I just do regular cornrows starting from the front of my head going back, and I do this a few times. One thing that's very important to keep in mind when you are doing these braids is not to braid your hair too tight, because you're about to crochet something through these braids, so you want there to be enough wiggle room for you to actually crochet whatever you're going to crochet, because if there's not, then it will hurt. After I do a few cornrows going straight back normally, what I do is I start diagonaling the cornrows to start coming from the side, because I knew I wanted my side to be there on the right. So I started gradually transitioning in to making my cornrows coming from the front of my head to coming from the side parting of my head. And rather than talk and try to explain this, I will just let you guys watch and see exactly how I'm doing it. Now I'm showing you guys how I move into the back and gradually transition and curve, and also move into the other side. On the other side, I'm doing the same thing where I originate from the side parting. Another thing to keep in mind whenever you are cornrowing your hair is that you want your cornrows, at least the beginning of your cornrows, to be around the same size as whatever you're about to crochet. So if you're about to crochet a really big braid, then you want your cornrows to be pretty big. Or if you're about to crochet some really tiny skinny braids, then you want your cornrows to be smaller. So just make sure to take that into account whenever you are braiding your hair, in case you need to braid your braids smaller or bigger than this. And on this side, I do the same thing that I did on the other side, where I gradually transition from originating the cornrows from the side parting to originating the cornrows from the front of my head. And this is what it looks like in the end. Pretty simple to do actually. And so depending on how long your hair is, you might have some excess braids still sticking out. So what I like to do is just crochet the ends of my braids through my cornrows, just by sort of looping the ends of the braids around each cornrow. You can also sew down the ends of your braids if you want something a little bit more secure. It's up to you. And here's an example of a crochet installation that I did with this braiding pattern, and as you can tell, it came out looking flawlessly and very natural looking. So I really do like this braiding pattern. So now on to the second braiding pattern. This is also another very good braiding pattern that I like to use. What's different about this one is, to start, what I'm doing is I'm braiding cornrows from the beginning of my head, but I don't go all the way back. I stop and then I continue going up, braiding short cornrows along the front perimeter of my head. And so that these braids don't unravel before I finish them, I just bobby pin them down at the end. And like I talked about in my previous braiding pattern that I showed, you want to make sure that the size of the cornrows that you are doing is around the same size as whatever you are about to crochet. So I usually like to test the thing I'm about to crochet against my head to make sure that it's around the same size as my cornrows. And then so once I've finished braiding those short cornrows going from the front of my head, what I do is I start, so this is going to be a middle part, so I start a cornrow going from the middle, and then as I'm cornrowing that braid down, I gradually add in those first few sets of braids that I did before, as you can see me doing right here. And then after I do that, I go in from the top of my head, originating from the middle part, and I just braid in the same way, going all the way down to the back middle of my head. And then I continue doing that multiple times, originating from that middle part of my head, braiding down. Once I get towards the back, I just do the same thing, just braiding all the way down. And then I do the exact same thing on the other side. Literally exact same thing mirrored, where I start by braiding a bunch of short braids at the very front of my head, going back, and then I cornrow from the middle part of my head going down and bring in those original cornrows from the front into that cornrow, and then I continue braiding cornrows straight down from the middle parting of my head going down. And I continue that until I finish braiding all of my hair. You guys can watch to see how I'm doing this. For this braiding pattern, I also decided to combine all of the braids into one braid. This is optional. You can also braid all of the cornrows all the way down individually and not combine them, and then tuck them in separately like I showed in my last example of my braiding pattern. Or you can do it this way, where you have one big braid that you tuck in. It's slightly bulkier this way with one big braid, but for me that's fine because it's at the very back of my head and it's never been a problem for me. Once you crochet something on top of it, it'll all be camouflaged. And I find one big braid pretty simple to do, so I honestly do it both ways myself. And yeah, so this is the finished braiding pattern. It ends up working really, really well, and this is an example of an installation that I did with this braiding pattern, and as you can see, it came out looking very, very natural. These are two of my favorite braiding patterns for crochet. Definitely try them out. There's no reason why we should be having unnatural looking crochet braids anymore, because there are good braiding patterns out there that allow you to have natural looking partings, and you can still wear your hair up, pull it back, or in a side parting. So definitely try these out, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Definitely feel free to subscribe if you found this video helpful, and you can also find me on Instagram at Seun Okimi, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.